Salt Lake City Council formal meeting. We are happy to have you here while we continue to hold our meetings remotely due to the declarations of emergency related to the pandemic and earthquake. Thank you for joining us. We will begin with a moment of silence as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. When we are done, we will turn our audio back on. So let's go ahead and put that up on the screen and take a moment to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thanks everybody. To begin our meeting tonight, I'd like to turn a little time over to Council Member Dan Dugan for a special honor for a previous council member.
Thank you, Chair Johnston. Tonight we honor a former council member who passed away last week, Rosalind Kirk. She served my district, District 6, from 1985 to 1996. Our condolences go out to her family and friends. I did not know her and wasn't a resident of Utah during her tenure, but the people who did know her and served with her speak more than kindly of Rosalind. Former council member Dave Bueller posted about her dedication as a member of this body. For 8 years, as I sat in her seat, Bueller wrote, I often looked at her picture on the wall and wondered what Rosalind would do. She was a great friend and example. She was a journalist, a bookstore owner, council member, author, teacher, and loving grandmother and great-grandmother. Rosalind was, by all accounts, a beautiful and engaging human being. She filled 2 stints at each as the council chair and vice chair, and also served as the chair of the RDA. When she finished her time on the council, a newspaper article noted that Kirk's accomplishments included negotiations that led to the fire station at Research Park, the Steiner Aquatic Center, in addition to the Anderson Library. She played a central role in getting land on Sunnyside Ave for This Is the Place monument. building Wasatch Hollow Park, and landing the first donation to the city's Open Space Land Trust, which grew out of the open space committee she set up in her district. The article goes on to quote a community council leader calling Kirk the most effective city council person I've worked with, a facilitator with a strong sense of fairness. Several council members who worked with her and who are still here have high praise for her. Rosalind made tough decisions at a very important time in Salt Lake City's history. She was cautious, yet forward-thinking when tough decisions were on the table, like those relating to the Olympics. She was a person of substance with a delightful and humorous nature that I always admire and treasure. She was a Wyoming native and grew up in Daggett County Ranch, probably where she got her toughness. The memorial posted by her family said, "The rigors of teaching were not a barrier to Rosalind's decision to serve as councilwoman. She enjoyed the hard work and asked the tough questions, collaborating with allies and opponents alike to address the concerns of constituents. Rosalind involved herself with passion, empathy, welcoming diversity, and being a voice for the less fortunate and telling the truth." Councilmember Kirk, you are a blessing to Salt Lake City. I salute you, I salute your legacy and your spirit. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councilmember Dugan, for that tribute. Appreciate it. With that, we'll move on to the next portion of our meeting tonight. I will cover our public meetings rules before our public comment sections of the agenda. And this brings us to item A4 to approve the work session meeting minutes of Tuesday, May 12, 2020, Tuesday, May 26, 2020, and Thursday, May 28, 2020, as well as the formal meeting minutes of Tuesday, January 5th, 2021, and Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. I'll look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Fowler, a second by Councilmember Wharton. Is there any discussion? All right. Those in favor, Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Manu.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
That is unanimous and the motion passes. We are now at the public hearing portion of our agenda. We take comments for each of the items scheduled for a council hearing. General comments will take place after the scheduled hearings tonight. We are accepting your comments through WebEx, and for those whose only option is to call in, staff will be monitoring a separate telephone line. The City Council has always had rules of decorum that are created to advance the legitimate government objectives of having an orderly, efficient meeting that moves through the agenda and gives everyone the opportunity to voice their opinions. In person, we had the added benefit of being able to see each other, which helped us get to know our constituents and engage more meaningfully. We still want to provide a space for people to feel comfortable and safe to participate. In order to achieve this, our rules of decorum extend from the moment you arrive into our virtual meeting. To help facilitate our comment period, please be respectful. Avoid yelling or making racial slurs, obscene, or defamatory remarks. The council respects all points of view, and we welcome new insights. However, using foul language and personal attacks make the public comment forum uncivil and intimidating for others. This meeting is also being broadcast on television and the internet, and so we will more strictly enforce the use of profanity. This will be considered your advance warning against the use of profanity. If someone uses profanity, we will mute your microphone and you will forfeit your opportunity to address the council tonight. If you feel you need to use profanity to express your point, you're welcome to email council members or call our comment line at 801-535-7654. In addition, just as we would ask for your name in our in-person meetings, we have requested your name during the registration process. To limit disruption, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of decorum. If your registered name doesn't meet this requirement, then our staff will use the chat feature to gather that information from you. Robert Nutzman, from our staff is helping to moderate the meeting, and we'll be messaging with the attendees to coordinate. Please monitor the chat screen for information and/or feel free to message our staff with any questions. Again, his name is Robert Nutzman. Robert will also be calling the names of those who wish to comment and unmuting lines. Once we open public comment, Robert will announce 3 names at a time so that people can have a notice and be prepared to speak. When it is your turn to speak, the meeting host will unmute your line. Please state your name and the 2-minute timer will begin. At the 2-minute mark, the host will announce time and your microphone will be muted. Of course, if you are unable to complete your full comment within the available time, please feel free to mail the Salt Lake City Council at P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84114-5476. Email us at council.comments@slcgov.com or call us on the phone 801-535-7654. If you do not wish to speak, please message our staff to let them know, or when the host states your name, please let us know you are here to listen. Again, I apologize if you get cut off tonight. We'll try and give you advance notice when time's up. But please feel free to comment outside of our public comment session if you need to finish your comments. We have 4 public hearings tonight. Our first public hearing combines items B1 through B3 as one hearing, which involves 4 grant applications. Now, before we begin taking comments, I will first turn the time over to Sylvia Richards, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give a short introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The city applies for and receives grants which help to support and fund some city programs. Each grant application is reviewed and then receives a public hearing, which gives the public an opportunity to comment on them. Tonight, there are 3 grants. First is the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality 2022-27 grant for the East Downtown 200 South Transit Hub. Second is the Assistance to Firefighters grant for fire equipment purchases. And third is the Justice Court Implementation Lab Initiative grant for an online virtual platform tool. Those are the 3 grants, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Robert, please start with our first public comment tonight.
Good afternoon, Council Chair. First, we have George Chapman, followed by Max Ethery. George, you're unmuted.
Okay, you know me. I'm always going to fight this ridiculous Taj Mahal in the middle of nowhere bus garage on 200 East to function as what? I mean, there's no 7th East bus, really. There are a couple of express buses, but trying to get money I mean, we don't have a bottomless barrel of money. Please, let's be realistic, and $400,000 will actually be better used providing $1 fares for Salt Lake City residents. I mean, $400,000, that's all it would take to get $1 fare, bus fare, for Salt Lake City residents. So why are we trying to put a bus garage or a super duper transit station for just one route? It doesn't make sense. Please be realistic. You're supposed to be fiscally responsible. Those are my comments.
Thank you.
Council Chair, next we have Max Ethery. 1 minute while I unmute Max. Max, you've been unmuted. Max, you are unmuted. Max, are you there? All right, Council Chair, we'll do some troubleshooting with Max and see if we can't get him up and going. That is the final commenter for this item.
Okay, thanks, Robert. If you can up your volume a little bit, might help me a little bit. I might be getting just old though. Can't tell.
Certainly, Council Chair.
Thanks. All right, well, thanks for everyone who made a comment tonight. I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer items B1 through B3 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Wharton, a second from, I don't know who that was. Was it Councilmember Valdemoros? Nope.
It was me.
We're going to say Councilmember Dugan then, since he put his hand up. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll take a vote. Councilmember Rogers?
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros?
Yes.
Councilmember Mono?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That motion passes. And let's see, we're going to scroll down here. That brings us to our second public hearing tonight. Item B4 is regarding an ordinance, library budget amendment number 1 for fiscal year 2020-2021. Now, before we begin taking comments on this item, I will first turn the time over to Russell Weeks, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give a short introduction. Russell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the first budget amendment for the library system for the fiscal year that's going to end on June 30. The amendment would involve a general fund allocation from the library fund of $620,895 for the library general fund and $260,000 for the library capital projects fund. The largest allocation in the general fund is to recognize a $420,000 federal grant to develop a model for increasing computer and internet access to underserved populations in Salt Lake City.
Thank you, Russell. All right, Robert, please start with the first public comment on this item.
Council Chair, we have nobody registered to speak to this item.
All right. Well, let's take a motion then.
Mr. Chair, I move the council close the public hearing and defer action on this item to a later date.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Rogers, a second by Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. We'll take a vote. Councilmember Rogers?
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros?
Yes.
Councilmember Mono?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That motion passes. This brings us to our next public hearing, item B5, regarding an ordinance that would amend various sections of the Salt Lake City Code pertaining to off-street parking regulations. Before we start taking comments on this item, I'll first turn the time over to Russell Weeks again, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give a short introduction.
Mr. Chair, this public hearing is for the public to comment on proposed changes to the city's off-street parking ordinances. The proposed ordinance is intended to tie off-street parking regulations to land uses in 4 categories: general, neighborhood center, urban center, and transit. This item is, the 4 categories are a new way of looking at how the city intends to regulate the parking ordinance, off-street parking.
Thanks, Russell. All right, Robert, let's start with our first public comment.
Council Chair, first we are going to have Ron Tamu, followed by Jan Colby, and then Daniel Curtis. And we have approximately 9 speakers to this item.
Okay.
Ron, you are unmuted.
This is Ron Tamu. I don't know all the issues with around this parking, but obviously you're looking at putting in a behemoth complex and 240 units with 150 parking places. Obviously, we're not going to have any place to park around our church. And we definitely want remedy. I don't know where that fits into your code, but we want to have all our property available for parking, and there isn't going to be any parking. So I don't know how this how you handle the parking, but I don't even know if we're gonna have a chance to comment on the zoning thing. We're trying to do that. We tried to contact the mayor and she signed us off, obviously. I've called all week long. My president sent her a couple of emails. I guess we're not relevant. Are we gonna have a chance to talk during the zoning when you put this down on us?
The public comments at the end of the meeting, and you can talk on anything you want at that point.
Okay, cool. I'll go for that.
Anything else in the parking ordinance? Okay. Well, thank you.
Council Chair, next we're going to have Jen Colby, followed by Daniel Curtis and Devin O'Donnell. One moment while I unmute Jen. Jen, you've been unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Jen Colby. And overall, there's some good elements in this, but it's not ready for council action, in my opinion. It's true that mandatory minimum off-street parking drives up the cost of housing and development. It's incompatible fundamentally with compact pedestrian, bicycle, and transit-friendly neighborhoods. That said, without robust, affordable, and safe transportation alternatives for people, cars don't just disappear on their own. This needs to be tied to a more connected, protected bicycle infrastructure network, sweet street design, appropriately priced on and off street parking, i.e. vehicle storage, and more. Developers who get a break from the cost of reduced parking minimums should be required to provide substantial amenities. Dropping PDM requirements is not appropriate. Increased bicycle parking is a good goal. Bike parking ratios are far too low, though. 9th and 9th is an example of need. 5 to 10 bikes can fit in one car parking space. Design requirements are really needed. There are already too many badly designed, unusable outdoor bike racks in the city of commercial locations. Adjacent to transit is not enough. Has the city actually studied if residents of the TFA zones are using transit at high rates? Transportation choice is much more complicated than just availability, unfortunately. This does not appear to reflect major changes driven by the pandemic, such as rapid adoption of telecommuting. The claim that corporations demand high parking stall counts to locate downtown is outdated thinking and should be challenged. Hopefully telecommuting and bicycle ridership will persist and transit use will rebound as we recover. I question the claim that parking demand is higher in neighborhood centers than urban centers or urban core. By what metric? Also, buses should count as transit. General category is too catch-all. It needs to be divided by use. The map should be carefully ground truthed. How does a parking context zone get changed? Who initiates it? Is there a public process? These and other questions should be addressed before any action is taken. Revised proposal should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council Chair, next we have Daniel Curtis, followed by Devin O'Donnell and Brenda Shear. Give me one moment while I unmute Daniel. Daniel, you're unmuted. Daniel Curtis, you are unmuted. We will troubleshoot with Mr. Curtis and move on to Devin O'Donnell. Devin, you are unmuted.
Thank you. So yes, as others have raised, I love the idea of increased bike parking. I'm happy to see a reduction of car use and upping of bike usage. However, keep in mind that there are those with accessibility issues that's not helpful for. I am concerned that this appears to focus on a reduction of off-street parking to free up space for other development. Less off-street parking really poses an issue to access for housing, especially those looking to move in the city. Personally, I live right next to the Project Open apartments. I really love them. They give a lot of affordable housing. However, their lack of off-street parking has filled the rest of our neighborhood with cars. They even have to park a block or two away. It's so sparse that people are nearly blocking our driveways every night and parking on corners. So they're getting ticketed for just trying to park near their home. I'm concerned this proposal would push that same issue out to other neighborhoods where this would be applied. Also, I know this really doesn't touch on it and it's mostly focused on residential, but I think it just bears mentioning that parking downtown is expensive and it's an obstruction to people wanting to visit the city. Just something to keep in mind down the line. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Council Chair, next we have Brenda Shear, and then George Chapman, and then Zachary DeSalt. One moment while I unmute Brenda. Brenda, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. I think the key thing to keep in mind when looking at this new parking ordinance is a couple of things. The first thing is it generally simplifies all of the parking requirements throughout the cities and makes it a little bit fairer. If you're developing a certain kind of housing in one area of the urban area of the city, then you're going to have the same kind of requirement in another urban area, despite the 10 or 15 different zoning requirements you may have. And those also, I admire the fact that it works within the context of various areas, which are defined fairly well. Now, you could argue about the boundaries of those, and I think Jen Colby's suggestion of ground truthing it is a very good one. I also support increasing the bike parking, the amendment that the Planning Commission did not see. The 1 per 10,000 seems like a pretty minimum when pretty minimal when bike parking is actually not that expensive. So I think the second thing to remember about this parking ordinance is that the city of Salt Lake is looking 20, 30 years ahead with buildings being built now. And will we, in 20 years, really need that giant parking garage? And if we don't need it, what are we going to do with it at that point? So I think it's really reasonable to start suggesting that we sort of begin to squeeze down the amount of parking that's available. It may hurt a little bit, but I think that this is the only way that we can actually wean ourselves on the idea that we can drive our car to any destination, pull up, and walk in the door. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Council Chair, next we have George Chapman, followed by Zachary DeSalt, and then we will try to come back to Daniel Curtis. One moment while I unmute George. George, you're unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, all of the community councils in District 5 have been complaining, as Councilman Mono knows, of the lack of appropriate and reasonable parking. The parking proposal makes it worse since it decreases off-street parking requirements in many areas, and it decreases parking requirements for old buildings that are repurposed, and ironically, it re-emphasizes no parking requirements for areas near tracks and front runners, but recent proposals near the future 650 South Main Street track station ask for more parking than required. There's a reason for this. We fought this battle 8 years ago, some of you may remember, and the most important issue is you have a parking study in process and you won't let the public see it. So why are we being asked to comment on information that we don't have? It's disrespectful at best. The consultant Fear and Peers worked with developers and the Downtown Alliance, but not with residents and businesses that I know of. And remember Councilman Andrew Johnson saying that if it is being used to get people out of their cars, it may not work. And I totally agree with that man. I wonder where he is. It may not work to help affordable housing, and I agree with that. Please send this proposal back to the staff and wait for public dissemination of the secret parking study. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Mr. Chapman. I think rumors of my demise are greatly exaggerated.
Council Chair, next we have Zachary DeSalt, followed by Daniel Curtis. One moment while I unmute Zachary. Zachary, you're unmuted.
Hi, my name is Zachary DeSalt. I live in District 4. Off-street parking minimums in addition to single-family zoning are probably one of the most harmful land use and zoning regulations that U.S. cities currently have on the books. While this ordinance update does move our city's regulation in the right direction, particularly by removing off-street parking minimums for new residential development, in the transit context, it leaves much of the city stuck with outdated off-street parking requirements. By requiring parking for new development, we are effectively mandating as a city that all the areas outside the red zone on the context map will never have widespread adoption of transportation solutions outside of the personal car. Additionally, requiring off-street parking results in increased costs for housing, goods, and services. Often, parking at businesses and apartments is provided for free. I'm using air quotes there. This free parking effectively results in people who take alternate forms of transportation, subsidizing those who choose to drive in the form of higher costs of things such as groceries and rents. A common concern for neighborhoods is the management of on-street parking in areas where off-street parking is already limited. I agree that is a valid concern, and the city should develop solutions such as parking permits for owners without access to off-street parking, or more ideally, widespread metered parking throughout the city. Metered on-street parking attaches a cost to those who use the street to park. By attaching a cost, ideally one that can be raised and lowered based on demand, we can apply economic principles to on-street parking demand management. The revenue generated from these parking fees should then be reinvested into the streets that they were generated on, so locals can see a tangible benefit for the cost they pay. I became interested in urban planning because I wanted to know why American cities are so much less livable compared to those in other countries. Off-street parking minimums are one of these reasons. If we want to take bold action on things like climate change, housing affordability, walkable communities, and transit access, this outdated policy needs to be removed. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for your comments.
Council Chair, next, it looks like Daniel Curtis is having issues getting his mic to work. He will not be commenting, but we have another person that joined. Austin Taylor is next. Give me a moment while I unmute Austin. Austin, you're
Hi.
unmuted.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, great. Sorry, I have a baby in the background talking. So I'm completely in favor of this reduction in off-street parking requirements. I used to work doing parking management for another city nearby, and one of the best books on parking is Donald Troop's High Cost of Free Parking. I'm going to quote some things from him really quick, and I'll have a brief comment. So one parking space adds about 20% to the cost of affordable housing. And in a Salt Lake City context, when you're doing structured parking, developers are paying $30,000 per structured parking space in a stacked garage. It can be $50,000 for each space underground. And those are costs that just make housing more expensive in Salt Lake, which is, as you guys know, quickly becoming an unaffordable place to be. And then the second thing is that parking minimums indirectly impact our low-income residents. So households making $35,000 per year or less are 9 times more likely to not own a car. Typically, the more income people make, the more cars they own. And so if we're requiring more parking spaces, that directly hurts our lowest income residents. And then from a climate standpoint, just makes it easier to drive and encourages driving. So I think the planning department has put together a great plan, and I ask that you guys support it.
Thanks for your comments tonight.
Council Chair, we have no more commenters for this item.
All right. Well then, thanks to everyone who made a comment on this item, and I'll look for a motion from the council.
Mr. Chair, I move the council to close the public hearing and defer action on this item to a later date.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Rogers, a second from Councilmember Fowler. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. That is unanimous and the motion passes. This brings us to our last public hearing, item B6, regarding an ordinance that would amend the RMF 30 low density multifamily residential zoning district and corresponding sections of the Salt Lake City zoning ordinance. Before we take public comments tonight, I'll first turn the time over to Nick Tarbett, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give a short introduction. Nick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Loud and
Thank you.
clear.
All right, the council is considering a proposal that would make amendments to various sections of the city code relating to the RMF 30 zoning district. Proposed changes include design standards for all new development, reducing the minimum lot area requirements per unit, removing lot width minimums and adding width maximums, allowing new building types such as sideway row houses, cottage developments, and tiny houses, and allowing more than one primary structure on a lot. Currently, the RMF 30 zoning does not allow multifamily developments, 3 or more living units on an average size property. The proposed changes would allow for more multifamily housing that could be compatible in size and scale with existing buildings in areas zoned RMF 30. This is the third public hearing on this item. The previous 2 were held last October.
All right, thanks, Nick. Robert, please start with our first public comment.
Certainly. The first excuse me, Council Chair, we have approximately 20 people to speak to this item. The first person to speak is Sarah Ballin, followed by Ian Daxter, and then Paula Mendoza. One moment while I unmute Sarah. Sarah, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you, Acting Chair Johnston. My name is Sarah J. Bland. I am representing myself and I live in District 1 in Rose Park. Councilmember Rogers and Mayor Mendenhall, I am your constituent. I am against any kind of rezoning amendments or changes to development ordinances that result in the consequence, be that consequence unintended or foreseeable, of any Westside community members' displacement from their current housing. I urge you to consider affordability as the key component of the RMF 30 low density multifamily residential zoning district and corresponding sections of Salt Lake City zoning ordinance. While I am new to this topic, I am concerned with the same issues that I hear from many community-based groups right now in regards to affordability and sustainable growth. As a tax-paying property owner on the west side, I am far less concerned with the stylishness of housing developments than I am with the livelihoods and quality of life of those residents who live in my community. I really hope that whatever actions the council takes tonight or in future meetings on this topic, those actions reflect that you have paid attention to those concerns and the need for healthy, humane growth within our metropolitan spaces. I urge you to only pass amendment language that is community-centered and generated from robust constituent feedback. Thank you for your time and for taking my comment.
Thanks for your comments, Tanya.
Council Chair, next we have Ian Dexter, followed by Paula Mendoza, and then Eli Kaufman. One moment while I unmute Ian. Ian, you've been unmuted.
Check, check. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Cool. Hi, my name is Ian. I'm with the organization Wasatch Tenants United. I'm a Salt Lake City resident and I reject these amendments as reckless, short-sighted, and negligent. The zoning project refuses any obligation to address affordable housing. These amendments dismiss the issue of affordable housing by saying that, quote, the project may indirectly promote development of affordable units. It is totally unacceptable for the city to leave the livelihood of the residents of the city to chance, especially when the city is putting its thumb on the scale by using our tax money to buoy up these empty luxury apartments through tax breaks, land gifts, and fee waivers, such as tax increment financing and other things of the sort. The city is giving millions upon millions to all kinds of buildings that are straight up luxury. We can't call 1,300 affordable, which is the 80% AMI, which that kind of investment is typically limited at. It's shocking to me that the city looks at rising rent and looks at the rent costs of new units being built and thinks that the answer is to rezone massive swaths of the city for further redevelopment. It's disgusting and it's just straight up neglectful. The areas designated in this measure are some of the last remaining areas you can find affordable, namely the area north of Liberty Park and the areas around East Central and the areas on the west side that are being designated. It's some of the last areas you can find affordable family housing, whereas a tremendous amount of the new development is centered around single individuals. What I'm going to guarantee you, and I'm sure I can speak on behalf of the entire organization when I say this, is that if you vote, if this is passed against the will of the constituents, we're going to be in your neighborhoods come re-election. We're going to be making sure everybody knows where you fell on this and who they can blame for their rising rent. Thank you.
Thanks for your time tonight.
Council Chair, next we have Paula Mendoza, followed by Eli Kaufman, and then Beverly Hill. One moment while I unmute Paula. Paula, you're unmuted.
Hi, my name is Paula Mendoza. I am with Wasatch Tenants United, and I am a Salt Lake City resident, and I urge City Council to reject these amendments and make any approval contingent on explicit provisions for affordable housing. This zoning project fails to address affordable housing and claims that it does not mean to facilitate affordable housing development. It effectively dismisses this issue of affordable housing by saying the project may indirectly promote development of affordable units. This is unacceptable. This conjecture is not only insulting, it's harmful. It's insulting to residents who've seen excessive rent hikes every year, and it's harmful to families and neighborhoods who face eviction and displacement. City Council must prioritize affordable housing in all zoning project decisions. We can't afford a zoning project that may indirectly promote affordable housing. We can't afford a project that has no clear plan or evidence to back up their assurances. Salt Lake City residents have no recourse to hold this zoning project and future developments accountable. City councils must reject these amendments as they stand, and any approval must be contingent on explicit provisions for affordable housing. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your comments.
Next, we have Eli Kaufman, followed by Beverly Hill, and then Jen Colby. One moment while I unmute Eli. Eli,
Hello,
you've
can you
been
hear me?
unmuted. Yes.
All right, I'm a Salt Lake City resident. I've lived here my whole life, and myself and the people in my community can already barely afford our rent as is. And the idea that you're going to rezone large sections of Salt Lake City so that you can create new developments without requiring affordable housing is absolutely irresponsible and careless. I'm with Wasatch Tenants United, and I am urging you to reject this proposal until it explicitly states the required inclusion of affordable housing. And when we say affordable, let's define that, because y'all are including housing that is like around $1,300 a month. That is not affordable. That is more than twice what I can afford and what a lot of the people I know can afford. Let's keep in mind what minimum wage in Utah is at the moment. That is $7.25 an hour. How are you supposed to afford $1,300 a month for rent? And that's still considered affordable. So if we're gonna consider this new development, we need to be including affordable housing as a requirement. We've seen rezones like this happen in other cities like Portland. And when it's happening here, you guys are explicitly taking out the requirements for affordable housing. That's heartless. I'm sorry, but that's straight up evil. Like, I don't have any other way to put it. It's really frustrating to see you guys again and again, every time I come to a city council meeting, ignore the overwhelming majority of your constituents who are giving you their opinion and trying to participate. It makes me feel like you're just trying to prove to us that the only channels for working people, for unsheltered people, to improve our communities and our lives is to work outside of the system and in opposition to the system. Why do you push us in that direction instead of embracing our suggestions and trying to make this city survivable for us? Because right now it's not survivable. And if you go through with this zoning proposal without including affordable housing explicitly and without redefining affordable housing as like around $600 to $700 a month, including utilities, you are actively.
Time.
Thanks for your comments, and we can take the balance of them offline if you'd like to add them either electronically or through our council staff.
Council Chair, the next speaker is Beverly Hill, followed by Jen Colby, and then Doug White. One moment while I unmute Beverly. Beverly, you're unmuted.
Hello, I'm Beverly Hill, and I live in District 1. And I would like to offer a solution for the property between 8 and 900 South and 300 and 400 West. I would like to start a program called Greener Acres Village Environment, an acronym GAVE. And Greener Acres Village Environment hopes to set up a campground, hut, and tiny home complex with an urban garden positioned within that block. And the area is already being used by the homeless, so why not leave it, use it for their benefit? I don't see really any programs addressing how to alleviate that problem. Greener Acres Village Environment offers a way to give back to our community. We all deserve a place to live with dignity and safety, and some have fallen down and need a little help getting back up. The Greener Acres Village will give those interested a chance to try again. Greener Acres Village would become a bridge to help them get back on their feet, a pilot program to assist those who choose to follow village rules and contribute 2 hours a week to help maintain the complex network of flexible housing. The village would be comprised of covered camping sites, 1 and 2 person huts, and tiny home models for 2 and 4 people. There would also be communal houses with equipped kitchens, restrooms, and laundry facilities. There would be a sanctuary, an art barn, and garden orchard. We hope to also provide a health clinic and quickie mart on the site, along with a food truck court to provide entertainment. There would be an amphitheater, outdoor cinema, and a bicycle shop. And this is just a nutshell of the proposals that I'd like to write up and send to the council in hopes that we could rent the property at a reduced cost and help to alleviate some of the housing.
Thanks for your comments. We look forward to seeing that proposal.
Council Chair, next we have Jen Colby, followed by Doug White, and then Sophie Anderson. One moment while I unmute Jen.
Hello.
Jen Colby, you've been unmuted.
Hello, Jen Colby, me again. Regarding the RMF 30 proposal, the sunk cost fallacy is a common logical error. Personally, I know it all too well, even as someone who values critical thinking and rationality. I implore you to avoid the sunk cost fallacy despite the time and level of effort invested in this process so far. There are too many underlying flaws in the assumptions, intent, current draft, and likely unintended and intended consequences to pursue this further without a wholesale reevaluation. Some of the goals and elements may be admirable. However, as a package, the changes if implemented will only exacerbate the affordable housing situation in Salt Lake City, while also laying the groundwork to undermine the Central City Master Plan, historic districts, and neighborhoods where most of these RMF 30 zoned housing units now exist. Issues include the 700 single family unit legalized in duplex building, subject to these changes. If the goal is to help preserve them as naturally occurring stock, this is not the way to do so. They're overwhelmingly overzoned in the first place and should be downzoned systematically to R2. Upzoning just increases land costs. ADUs are already permitted in both R2 and RMF 30. The level of change appears to be creating an entirely new zone. As such, it should be called something else, created separately, and then appropriate parcels rezoned to it. Local historic districts have little impact on demolition, sadly. The simplistic idea that adding units at any price point will address affordability is being proven wrong across the country. Affordability must be addressed directly through regulation policy and proactive programs. Salt Lake City has more than 20,000 new rental units built or in the pipeline recently, mostly so-called luxury. I did a study for this in my MPA program GIS class. By failing to pass an inclusionary zoning policy prior to the construction boom, we've missed a huge opportunity. ADUs also appear to be underperforming. Many elements in the growing Salt Lake City plan have not been implemented. That needs to be a focus. It's time to get back to the drawing board and work on what really works. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Following Jen Colby, we have Doug White, followed by Sophie Anderson, and then David Ummett. One moment while I unmute Doug. Doug, you have been unmuted. Douglas White, you're unmuted. We will work with Doug to troubleshoot and come back to him. Next, we have Sophie Anderson, and then David Ammett, and then Emma Cleve. One moment while I unmute Sophie. It looks like Sophie has left our meeting. One moment while I move on to David. David, you are unmuted.
Wonderful. Am I coming in loud and clear?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Hello, council members. As always, thank you for your service. Thank you for your time tonight. I am speaking as the Director of Preservation Utah, Utah's historic preservation nonprofit based here, of course, in Salt Lake City. As an organization that advocates for stewardship of our historic built environment, we here at Preservation Utah feel the RMF 30 proposal before you tonight is a well-intentioned start towards a zoning change that could eventually help to address the affordable housing crisis. For example, allowing two primary structures on a parcel following a historic pattern of development in Salt Lake. We perceive, however, that RMF 30 as it currently stands will inadvertently incentivize the demolition of existing homes, more specifically, older homes that contribute to the historic fabric of Salt Lake's neighborhoods. From an aesthetic perspective, these homes, of course, provide character and reflect the local heritage, a character and heritage that many of you on City Council have indicated publicly you wish to see protected. Economically speaking, of course, many of these older homes offer naturally occurring affordable housing that contrasts greatly with the market rate prices seen in new buildings. We specifically, therefore, ask that everyone on City Council vote to, that before you on City Council vote to approve RMF 30, you continue to work with Salt Lake City's Planning Division, but also housing and neighborhood development and economic development, this multidisciplinary approach, as well as with community members to ensure that there are robust measures in place that actively discourage demolitions of existing structures and also incentivize maintaining historic structures. We believe that historic preservation, of course, goes hand in hand with ensuring the right to affordable housing, contributing to environmental sustainability, and retaining stewardship of our valuable past. Again, thank you for your time tonight.
Thanks for your comments tonight.
Council Chair, following Dave Emmett, we have Emma Gleave, Cindy Croma, and Tina Balderrama. One moment while I unmute Emma. Emma, you've been unmuted.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Perfect. So I'm Emma Gleave, and I'm a resident of Salt Lake for my whole life, and I just wanted to kind of echo some of the comments that have already been made, particularly with the rezoning in regard to affordability. Given the current circumstances, not only with COVID-19, but kind of the affordability crisis preceding it, I think perhaps the timing of this rezone would require more consideration for affordability. I think affordability is the more pressing matter in our housing situation. So I'm not necessarily opposed to multi-unit or multi-family unit housing. However, I think the rezone and language really needs to center on affordability. And again, particularly considering our minimum wage in Utah and what many other people have already mentioned about just rents being unaffordable. $1,300 a month is not affordable, or especially for low-income residents or other people. So that's kind of the gist of what I wanted to say, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for your comments tonight.
Council Chair, next we have Cindy Cromer, followed by Tina Balderrama, and then Sue Manu. One moment while I unmute Cindy. Cindy, you've been unmuted.
Thanks, Robert. My efforts regarding changes to the RMF 30 zone started 4 years ago. If you approve the ordinance tonight, you will significantly increase the value of my properties. I'm asking you not to do that. Do not increase my net worth. The consequences of your approval are not unanticipated. You will drive up the value of land in the zone and therefore the cost of housing. You will displace existing residents through evictions and the replacement of existing housing with market rate units, and you will change the character in some of Salt Lake's most diverse neighborhoods. I have certainly made mistakes in the last 4 years as I attempted to convince decision makers that this approach was the wrong way to increase density. Number one, for the first 2 years, it didn't recognize that this so-called text amendment amounted to a significant change in zoning. And then I analyzed my own properties late in 2019, and I realized that the city was changing the development potential, and not by one zone, but by multiple classifications. Number two, about the time I figured out about my properties being rezoned, I also figured out that the city does not have a policy on displacement. How can Salt Lake City fail to have a policy on displacement of its residents? Number three, as a landlord providing housing at reasonable prices, I know that housing does not trickle down. I kept saying it's apples and oranges. The city's mindset has been that any additional housing is a benefit. No, market rate housing displaces far more people than I can possibly accommodate. For the past year and a half, I have insisted that housing is interdisciplinary, and the city plowed ahead with this rezoning that is exclusively about planning. I'm going to try one more time. There are skill sets and sequencing involved in creating housing. The framers and the roofers have to show up, then the electricians and plumbers. Of course, someone had to figure out how to pay for their efforts in the first place. And when the project starts to resemble housing, the drywallers come in. The drywall is one of the final steps. And in this story, the drywallers are like the planners in the case of the RMF 30. The planners showed up and delivered on this project. The framework and the financing are completely missing. The planners showed up and no one else did. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your comments.
Council Chair, next we have Tina Balderrama, followed by Sue Menu, and then Zachary DeSalt. One moment while I unmute Tina.
Can you hear me?
Tina, yes.
Hello, my name is Tina Balderrama. I'm fighting the Kozo apartments that are planning to displace me and my family from my home. I want to give you the recipe that can make any person a low-income family. It begins with the murder of your spouse. Then your 18-year-old daughter has a stroke that impairs her entire right side. She can no longer speak or walk as the trauma her eyes and her heart have absorbed. It is then you become the family nurse. After a year of rehab, she's released back to the world. Then you try to hide under your parents' wing. You move into their rented home with your children. Then your mother gets diagnosed with terminal liver disease. You are now a hospice nurse. You take your mother to her last breath while you sleep on the same bed with her to make sure she does not fall out at night. You then move your father out, and a year later, his heart disease reaches its point. You then take him to your rented home. You hold his trembling hand, but he won't stop breathing until he knows his little girl is out of the room. You walk back in and he's just gone. Then a few years later, your firstborn son, who is only 26, has a widowmaker heart attack in the same exact room your father passed in. He falls to the floor holding his chest while you try to convince yourself that this is not happening. Somewhere in between all that, you take custody of your two small grandchildren because your impaired daughter can only give birth but cannot take care of the children. She has no idea. Now you are a mother again, a nurse, a sister, a mom to all of them because your brothers cannot handle what's happened to your parents either. Now you truly are the head of a low-income family. If you survive this virus, there is a reason for it. It's because you are here to help others. You have a job to do, whether you're being paid for it or not. Do not fail your family, do not fail yourself, and truly make a difference in others' lives. If you are not doing that, then you should not have any right making decisions that affect others' lives. Anybody can become a low-income family. If you are not helping solve this pandemic, you should not be in that chair. Thank you for listening to me. Tina Holt Balderrama.
Thanks for sharing, Tina.
Council Chair, next we have Sue Menu, followed by Zachary DeSalt, and then Madeline Glenn. One moment while I unmute Sue. Sue, you've been unmuted.
I was actually interested in the West End properties. I guess that's on the table tonight. Is that correct?
Yeah, we don't have a public comment on that specifically tonight, but at the end of the meeting, we'll have public comment in general, and you can bring it up then if you prefer.
Okay, so I can just back. Okay.
Thank you.
Council Chair, next we have Brenda Shear, followed by Zachary DeSalt, and then Madeline Glenn. My apologies for looking over Brenda's name. One moment as I unmute her. Brenda, you're unmuted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Brenda Shear. I'm chair of the Salt Lake City Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission did approve this, or did recommend that it be approved by City Council. But I think that actually, in listening to many of the decisions come forward today, I think that there actually is some merit thinking about what kind of effect this may have on housing that is currently serving as low and moderate income housing that is fairly dilapidated, which is one of the ways in which low income housing is actually provided in a city. The design standards, the new building types, all encourage, to a certain extent, that things which are fairly dilapidated be demolished. And while these are reasonable ideas in terms of trying to add additional housing stock to the community, I think that it's also true that the housing stock that's going to be added is not going to be necessarily affordable to a range of people who might need the affordability the most. Obviously, one of the most important ways in which this can be changed is to have inclusionary zoning, which is the ability to include, to require affordable housing from people who are changing, who are redeveloping a site. However, I believe that the state legislature has recently nixed this one, and I think that this is an area for people who are interested in housing affordability to really work on, so that the city can, in fact, go forward with inclusionary ideas that might actually mitigate not only the failure to provide affordable housing, but also some of the potential of this zone change to moderate the new housing affordability.
Thanks for your comments tonight.
Council Chair, next we have Zachary DeSalt, followed by Madeline Glenn, and then George Chapman. One moment while I unmute Zachary. Zachary, you've been unmuted.
Hi, my name is Zachary DeSalt. I live in District 4. I am generally supportive of these zoning amendments to make the RMF 30 district more utilitarian in its use, and with the potential to provide more units than it currently can. I do think we're ignoring the elephant in the room, and that is single-family zoning. Single-family zoning just recently was repealed by the city that initiated it, and that's Berkeley. And the majority of land in Salt Lake City is zoned for single-family homes. And I know it's very fashionable to attack developers because they're the most visible thing that's kind of pushing people out of affordable housing. But at the same time, the Salt Lake City resident that's been living in their home for the past 10 years and seen the value of their home double due to restrictive zoning laws that only allow a single family home on that land, there is just so much to blame for the housing unaffordability in this city. And I know it's not very politically popular to blame your constituents for you're the reason that Salt Lake City is no longer affordable, but until we have land use reform in the city where we allow more types of housing to be built, things like row houses, things like attached housing, small houses, basically anything right now that is currently prohibited by our really restrictive single family zoning with racist history, by the way, that I'm not even going to get into that. But I feel like this is a baby step, and we need to take bold action to address things like housing affordability, address things like climate change and our air quality. And I think this is kind of just a piecemeal solution that's not really going to have much of an effect, much like the ADU ordinance. I feel like that had great goals, but it's not enough. There's only been like 30 of those built since the ordinance was passed. So legalize housing. Thanks.
Thanks for your input tonight.
Council Chair, next we have Madeline Glenn, followed by George Chapman and then Devin O'Donnell. One moment while I unmute Madeline. Madeline, you've been unmuted.
Hi, my name is Madeline Glenn. I live in District 3, and I am a social worker. I work in the Rose Park area, and I know that this would really impact the people that I work with. And when I moved to Salt Lake, it was really hard to find affordable housing. We eventually did find something that was affordable for a dual income. But I know that, and it's a studio apartment, but I know that there's lots of families that that can't afford housing, and it wouldn't have been affordable for us to live in something that was $900 to $1,300, which was kind of the affordable housing option that we had. I don't oppose multifamily housing necessarily, but I do think that the city council members must reject these amendments as they stand, and approval must be contingent on explicit provisions for affordable housing. Thank you for your service and for your time.
Thanks for your input tonight.
Next, we have George Chapman, followed by Devin O'Donnell, and then Martha Castillo. One moment while I unmute George. George, you're unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Oh, boy. Well, obviously, the RMF 30 proposal should be sent back to staff. Cindy Cromer gave one of the best arguments against this. You want affordable housing? What happened to the inclusionary zoning with impact fee decreases that got lost in the ozone 2 years ago? And it was recommended by your affordable housing expert recently. So what about the 80% of the land that is not allowed to have housing in Salt Lake City? And I need to emphasize this because it doesn't seem to be sinking in. Only 10% of the property in Salt Lake City is single family home zoned. What happened to the State Street and North Temple plans? They need faster implementation. Despite the vigorous efforts of the chair, thousands of housing units should have been built, but weren't 6 years ago. And again, you're asking for the public to comment without all of the information. And of course, I'm talking about the secret draft gentrification plan. Obviously, Salt Lake City housing plans need a reset, and the RMF 30, unfortunately, will encourage destruction of affordable housing to build more market rate housing, again, as noted by your housing expert, Dan Ackerman. This proposal will result in affordable rental owners getting an offer they can't refuse to sell and allow redevelopment of their properties. We need to emphasize this. This proposal will result in an eviction tsunami. You want more housing? Put a park on Fleet Block. Watch developers jump at building housing there. Please return this proposal back to the staff for a better analysis until you release a super duper secret gentrification study. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for your feedback.
Next, we have Devin O'Donnell, followed by Martha Castillo, and then Teresa Marie. One moment while I unmute Devin. Devin, you've been unmuted.
Thank you, Council. So this rezone proposal shows both good intention and a further lack of attention to affordability. Many lower income millennials I know would love the opportunity to develop a community of homes on a small lot by cost sharing. However, having this opportunity without any guarantee for affordable housing is beyond dangerous. The city is already unaffordable, and this would only expand that problem. The most upsetting part throughout this proposal is the lack of enforcement around affordable housing. The majority of the item focuses on appearance requirements with mere sentences regarding displacement or affordability. Even those, the language is of hope and not of guarantee. These are quotes from the documents. The goal of this project was never to facilitate development of affordable housing units. Instead, the goal was removing zoning barriers for development. These amendments do not directly facilitate affordable housing units as per the US HUD standards. However, by reducing required lot size per units, units themselves might also be smaller and in turn more affordable. Greater supply of market rate housing may free up the number of affordable or mid-priced units for those who truly qualify for them. Also, there's a unit bonus that would encourage units to be added onto an existing structure as opposed to demolishing the existing structure. All of this is a hope that developers would do the right thing. If the last decade of high-density housing is any indication, that hope is misplaced. Adding insult to injury, the 5-year plan for growing SLC is included in the petition. Entire sections of that state a commitment to increasing affordability and access to all while preventing displacement. These lofty goals do not appear in the hard text of this item. Including that does nothing but taunt us with promises that are not fulfilled in policy. While I do appreciate a couple members on the council, including Mr. Wharton, pressing on this displacement and affordability, it's not enough. We want to see that in writing. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your comments tonight.
Council Chair, next we have Martha Castillo, followed by Teresa Marie, and then Annie Lee. One moment while I unmute Martha. Martha, you've been unmuted.
Hi, my name is Martha Castillo. I'm with Wasatch Tenants United and as a Salt Lake City resident. I just wanted to, again, echo a lot of what's already being said for this council to reject the amendments to B6. This zoning project refuses any obligation to address affordable housing. These amendments, as echoed from Devin's statements, they address or discuss the issue of affordable housing, saying that the project may indirectly promote development of affordable housing. The year of 2020 brought on a storm of social reckoning, and all members of this council have given the Salt Lake City residents promises of advancing equity and instilling actual change. Affordable housing is vital to this work. This zoning will displace families and neighborhoods that, I might add, are historically poor, working class, and non-white. We can't afford a zoning project that doesn't explicitly say that we are going to provide affordable housing. We can't afford something that implies that it's going to provide affordable housing. I would really suggest and recommend that the Salt Lake City residents continue to speak out towards this, and that we get something in writing that does really address the affordable housing issues, especially here out on the west side, where a lot of these developments are planned. We are already overrun by our homeless neighbors, and it's like and then now we want to evict families and build housing that families can't live in or afford. I would really love to see all of the lip service that we were given last year of promises of advancing equity to be put into action. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Council Chair, next we have Teresa Marie, and then Annie Leem, and then Monica Hilding. One moment while I unmute Teresa.
Hello,
Teresa, you've been unmuted.
Hello, City Council members. Thank you so much for your time today. My name is Teresa Murray, and so much has been said today that I think is wonderful on the subject, talking about just how important it is that we prioritize affordability, especially what Martha Castillo said. Given that so much has been said on this particular ordinance, I just wanted to add that the affordability crisis and the housing problem has obviously been going on for a long time and has been getting worse. But I think 2020 has particularly been the worst year for it. And we have a national looming eviction crisis that I think it has to be addressed directly. I think particularly in the temporal context of our current environment, this ordinance really, it's appalling that it wouldn't address affordability. Thank you so much for your time. I yield my time.
Thanks for your comments tonight.
Next, we have Annie Leem, followed by Monica Hilden, and then Kiru Kentua. One moment while I unmute Annie. Annie, you've been unmuted.
Great, thank you so much. So first of all, I'd like to just begin with, so yeah, my name is Annie Lim. I am with Wasatch Tenants United. And yet again, we've had several people discuss this, and I would like to echo a lot of their points. They have really great things to mention, especially, let's see, we had Martha and some people earlier. But I agree in the sense that, like, while, the path of hell is paved with good intentions. And while I understand, like, logically, like, why we want to increase housing, there are so many things that go wrong with how it is currently written. I went to the FAQ page for the specific movement. Let's see, I had it pulled up. Yes, and it says that it offers a range. Let's see, quote, these types provide diverse housing options along a spectrum of affordability. But what does that mean? unfortunately, you know, because like somebody mentioned, you know, like we like to blame developers, but you know, like money does drive this, and it's something that we need to, if we don't like dig out a space for affordability, it's gonna get ran over. And for as far as Lake City go, yes, I've lived here my whole life. I'm part of District 1, and I think it would be a shame to push out these people yet again. They're the backbone of our society, and, you know, I'm part of them. So to just ignore it, I think, is ignorant. You know, I understand how, like, oh, like, I'm doing a good, like, we're doing a good thing. We're expanding different kinds of housing, but that can be very easily twisted and manipulated into something much more sinister. So without having, like, this needs to be taken back and have something written in specifically, like with numbers that can't be twisted or changed or manipulated, because this is really important to people. I mean, I was at, I can't remember earlier, Tina, that was a really moving story. And it is true. Like, it is, anything can happen to anybody. And affordable housing is a crucial landmark for people. So to push out the people is, I think, you know, cruel, evil, and at best ignorant. So yet again, I think it's important to make sure we dish out a specific wording for that, and we are very thoughtful in how we use that. So yeah, thank you so much. And again, Wasatch Tenants United, and have a great night.
Thanks for your comments tonight.
Next, we have Monica Hilding, followed by Kiru Cantua, and then Carrie Marsh. One moment while I unmute Monica. Monica, you're unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
My name is Monica Hilding, and I'm a longtime resident of District 4. The City Council must prioritize affordable housing in all zoning project decisions. We can't afford a project that has no clear plan or evidence to back up assurances of affordable housing. City Council members must reject these amendments as they stand, and any approval must be contingent on explicit provisions for affordable housing. I am concerned that these amendments will be highly detrimental to historic neighborhoods throughout the city, including mine, and will diminish the unique character of these neighborhoods. Much of the best low-income housing in Salt Lake is found in the very sort of older residential buildings targeted by these amendments. Most developers will prioritize economic return over historic preservation or other public benefits. So I urge you to reconsider this amendment and think about keeping people in their homes, whether they be owners or renters. Thank you.
Thanks for your feedback.
Council Chair, next we have Kiru Cantua, followed by Carrie Marsh, and then Colby Swiftdick. One moment. Kiru, you've been unmuted.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Kiru Cantua, and I'm a member of the Rose Park Brown Berets. Utah has the worst renters' rights I've ever seen. If this ordinance passes, you are allowing for poor working class and POC folks to be displaced. You say that you care about our unsheltered relatives, but you will allow for luxury apartments and condos to be built everywhere, and especially on the west side. You will be sending poor families to the streets and left at the mercy of the pigs that brutalize our unsheltered folks and POC families. And the resources that Mayor Mendenhall talks about that takes weeks up to years to get up into affordable housing is ridiculous. Please stop sending that as an automatic response or a default response to the poor families that are asking for a service. Stop doing that, Mayor Mendenhall. And the vague definition of affordable housing is a joke. Anything that's over 50% AMI is not affordable, especially to folks that live in Rose Park. Mayor Mendenhall, City Council, you are allowing for realtors and housing developers to kill us. We are dying. We are being sent to the streets and we are dying. Stop the Cozo apartments and stop the Ellie development and stop the Luso. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
And Council Chair, next we have Carrie Marsh, followed by Colby Swiftdick, and then Brooks Bergman. One moment while I unmute Carrie. Carrie, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Just make sure everyone can hear me.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So more small units such as cottages and tiny homes can help keep rents in check, as rents may not rise as quickly as if housing units would not have been added. So I do see potential there that rents can be kept in check with these kinds of small units. And I see that changes in zoning is a way to give some power to local property owners in order to provide the affordable housing that they want to see in their communities. Many people would like to share some of their unused land and provide places that people can live in an affordable manner. Property owners have the power to create modest and affordable houses if they're given that power through zoning. As property values increase, they can use that kind of equity to then build affordable housing and be part of the solution themselves. So I do appreciate the empowerment for property owners to create affordable housing units and share some of their own land. Allowing tiny houses and cottages, I think, is a form of gentle density that I think many residents are more comfortable with than some of the other forms of development that they are seeing within the city. And what I'm seeing now is that there are a lot of property owners or investors who are renovating single family properties or duplex properties in these areas anyway, and then still renting them for a higher rate. And I don't think that that is assisting affordable housing either. And as housing prices increase and purchasers buy those houses, then they would need to charge increasing amounts of rent in order to pay mortgages. So I think the problem continues unless there are more housing units in the system. And I do appreciate the preservation incentives with.
Sorry, I have to cut you off there, but please offline continue your comments with us through our staff. Thanks for your time tonight.
Council Chair, next we have Colby Swistek and then Brooks Bergman. 1 moment. Colby, you've been unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hi, City Council. My name is Colby and I'm a resident of District 1. Like many others in this meeting, I am asking you not to pass the RMF 30 amendment. As our city grows, it's obviously important to add housing to our city, but it can't be at the cost of our low-income residents. To move forward with the amendment as is, without explicit language protecting affordable housing, it will push low-income residents out of their homes and out of the community. We need higher density housing, but not to line the pockets of developers at the cost of our low-income residents. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your comment.
Council Chair, next we have Brooks Bergman. 1 moment while I unmute Brooks. Brooks, you're unmuted.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Go ahead.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I just wanted to, chime in and like the rest of the kind people that are here in this, meeting today, speak against this rezoning that y'all have planned. I think that a lot of people have been relatively kind to y'all with regards to the vagueness that you have defined, the vagueness regarding affordability within this rezoning specifically. And I think it's important for us to understand, right, that such a vague definition is not merely a mistake, but it's a tactic, it's very much a weapon, because they y'all can continue building these types of properties in these areas that you've left dilapidated, or otherwise allowed like property value to, go down, right? Because you're not taking care of any of the infrastructure, making sure that these communities need what they have to actually sustain themselves and thrive, right? And then you jack up those properties and you sell them to developers for a profit, right? And the worse off the community is in terms of the infrastructure that y'all have there, the more profits made by the developers, which is good news for the city council, right? And with that in mind, we can't look at this type of development project, right? And understand it as anything more than an attempt to push working class and poor communities and oppressed nationalities out of the communities that they've been in. And this is, something that if you vote for, y'all will be complicit in knowing that you're going to be displacing families that have been here for generations. And I hope if this does pass or would happen to pass at any point, that you go to sleep knowing that that's on your conscience. I yield my time.
Thanks for your comments tonight.
Council Chair, we don't have any more speakers to this item.
Okay. Well, I want to express appreciation to those who have commented tonight. And I will look for a motion. We will have a discussion after that, unless Councilmember Fowler has something before that.
No, Your Honor. I do this whenever I'm not chairing. No, Mr. Chair, I do have a motion, if I may.
Please go ahead.
I move that the council continue the public hearing to a future date until related amendments, such as the Affordable Housing Overlay or Residential Housing Loss Mitigation Plan, are brought to the council for consideration and potential adoption.
We have a second to that motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Fowler and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Is there any discussion on this motion? I will take a point of personal approach. Then I agree with the motion fully, and I don't want to overlook the rest of the things that are still happening concurrent to this. We've mentioned in here the delaying consideration of this particular ordinance change for zoning, but the housing loss mitigation ordinance, which is being worked on, I believe we have to keep looking at the affordable housing overlay, which is in process, I believe. Anti-displacement efforts, which are going to be tied to the 9-line CDA, as well as ADU incentives, which should be tied to that as well. I think there's a variety of things the city is working on currently or has worked on that probably need to be a part of this. And a personal point, I would also include inclusionary zoning on my end, even though that's a tricky subject statewide. I think they all have to be a part of the discussion because one thing is not going to solve this for us. So I appreciate the council in taking this motion or making this motion at this point. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Councilmember Romano.
Thanks. I'd also like to point of personal privilege. I just wanted to mention that I think tying this to affordable housing and waiting for that may be a good idea. I am concerned because I agree with one of the commenters that a lot of these parcels right now are being demolished, and under the current zoning, the only thing that can be rebuilt is a single family house. RMF 30 is effectively a single family zone right now unless multiple parcels are combined. And that single family home will be multi-million dollars to purchase. And so the current zoning does not allow affordable development. And this proposal would move us in that direction. However, I understand waiting to tie it to the affordable housing overlay or the housing loss mitigation. And I understand that the motion, and I'll support it to do so. But I really encourage the administration to do that as quickly as possible. I know these things take time, but we are already losing this naturally occurring affordable housing. As soon as a house sells, the new owner either demolishes it and rebuilds or remodels it, and it's no longer an affordable housing unit. And that's already happening. And so the sooner that we can get those other two pieces in place so that we can move land use ordinances like this forward, the better. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman Romano. Councilmember Fowler.
I would like to make an amendment to my motion. I would actually like to close the public hearing. This is our third public hearing on RMF 30. I'd like to close the public hearing. Everything else remains the same, so I'll read it so everyone knows. I move that the council close the public hearing, but we put this on a future, we defer action until related amendments such as the affordable housing overlay or residential housing loss mitigation plans are brought to the council for consideration and potential adoption.
I'm assuming that we're going to call that a friendly amendment at this point.
I mean, it's my motion, so I'm trying to be friendly to myself.
Excellent. The second was that Councilmember Dugan or Rogers? Dugan?
Dugan.
Would you second that as well, the change?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have discussion on this change. Seeing none, and I'll make sure I double check with the attorney before I take the vote. Katie here. All right, I got a thumbs up, so I'm assuming that's a positive sign. We can move forward with this particular motion. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, I will take a vote starting with Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That motion is unanimous. Excuse me, voting is unanimous. The motion passes. We are now on at section C, potential action items. First item, C1, is regarding an ordinance that would close a small portion of an alley at approximately 740 West, 746 and 746 West, 900 South. I'll look for a motion on this alley closure.
Do we have motion sheets?
Do we have the motion sheet?
It's coming up now.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move that we adopt the ordinance.
Is there a second? Is that Councilman Rogers I heard?
I
Nope.
second it.
Ah, sorry.
And Mono,
We have a motion by Councilman Mono, a second by Councilman Valdemoros. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, take a vote. Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. The voting is unanimous. The motion passes. Our next potential action item is C2 regarding an ordinance that would rezone properties at 706 to 740 West 900 South and 710 to 739 West Genesee Avenue, including portions of two alleys from M1 light manufacturing to RMU residential mixed use. I'll
Mr.
look for a
Chair?
motion. Yes.
I move that the council defer action to a future council meeting.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Fowler, a second by Councilmember Mono. Any discussion on this item? I will take a moment to make a comment then. I believe we probably need another discussion between the developer and the neighbors to ensure we're on the same page about this before we take this this vote. So we will come back to this at some point in the future. Any other comments? All right, we'll take a vote. Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. A unanimous vote. The motion passes. Now we are at item C3 regarding an ordinance that would amend the Sugar House Master Plan and zoning map for property at 2903 South Highlands Drive. I will look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Fowler, a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Our next potential action item C4 is regarding an ordinance that would rezone the properties at 1301 and 1321 South State Street. I will look for a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I move that the council adopt the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Mono, a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this? Councilmember Mono.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention I'm very excited for a new development on this corner within my district. I expected that there would be more concerns about this proposal, and I checked in with my community council chairs and I followed very closely, and there was not, and even called community council chairs, and both were supportive. And so I'm very excited to have something move forward. I will reiterate a previous concern that this whole part of the city is ripe for development and ripe for reinvestment, and especially with the RDA project area and the new station area plan. And I'm hopeful that our planning efforts can move forward as quickly as possible, so that it's not just whatever zone the developer asks for, we give them, but that there's a more comprehensive plan for the area. But I'm very excited for a catalytic project on that corner. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilmember. Anyone else? All right. See no more further comments. We'll take a vote. Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
And I'm yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Next, our last potential action item tonight is C5 regarding an ordinance that would amend the zoning map and central community master plan for properties located at 159 South Lincoln Street, 949 East, 955 East, 959 East, and 963 East, 200 South. I will look for a motion.
Mr.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Anna.
I would like to make a motion, and I move that the council reject the petition.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Valdemoros, a second by Councilmember Fowler. Any discussion on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll take a vote. Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That motion fails unanimously. We are now on to questions to the mayor.
Mr.
Chair, that motion
Doesn't technically the motion.
Excuse me, that motion.
Petition
Excuse me,
fails.
yes. Thank you for calling me out, council members. That is correct. The motion passes to reject the petition. Thank you very much. Let the record reflect that, please. Questions to the mayor. Any questions to the mayor tonight? Well, first of all, thank you, Mayor, for being here and your staff today. Council members?
Mr. Chair, I don't have any questions, but if I may have just and it's not directed to you, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, just a point of clarification, if I may have a moment of privilege.
Sure.
For anybody that's tuning in, I want, and maybe had not been to council meetings before COVID and before we went virtual, I did want to just sort of explain why I'm here as chair, but Councilmember Johnston is chairing. And this was a tradition that came in, that was in place before I got on the council, where council members, if they wanted, would take turns chairing our formal meetings, just to make sure everybody gets a chance to do that. So I didn't want people to be confused at why I was sitting here and Councilmember Johnston was chairing, although I love you chairing and you're doing great job, but just to give some background context for people so there wasn't some confusion there.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, but I will defer to you to lead us anytime. I'm glad to participate and help out, though. I think we'll all take turns in this. I do want to give some time to the mayor if she would like some time.
Well, I wanted to thank you, City Council, for working with our administration over the last many months on the proposal that you just received a bunch of public comment on. And as you know, we wish that our planning division had had the capacity to do the housing loss mitigation work parallel with that zoning amendment. And you know that they're working on it now. We will get it to you and the affordable housing overlay as soon as we can. And we understand the action taken tonight. I just want to mention to those in the audience, especially those who came to give comment, that this was in the works. Your comments are valuable. There's been a lot of work happening between the city council and the administration. And it was unfortunate to hear, however, perhaps misinformed, a vacuum perception of this ordinance is perceived by some of the public. And just wanted to reiterate what happened in the work session today around the tremendous investment that Salt Lake City in total has made in affordable housing and continues to make above and beyond any other government in the state of Utah, including the state of Utah, with $65 million to affordable housing in the last 5 years. And the only city with a funding stream that is dedicated to affordable housing, in addition to accessory dwelling units throughout the city and all of that work that we're talking about coming through. So I just want to recontextualize that piece of zoning proposal and thank the council for working with us over the last many months and holding public hearings to make sure that when we update that zoning, that it's done in the best way we can.
Thank you, Mayor, very much. Did I see Councilmember Wharton raise his hand a moment ago? I apologize if I missed it.
You did. I just I thought I had a. I'm withdraw my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Questions or comments to the mayor? Okay. We're going to go into our general comment section of our meeting at this point, but since I know there are a number of items that people are very interested in tonight and may have comments on during the general portion, I wanted to quickly try and recap quickly what we voted on. Tonight we had looked at the budget amendment, but moving on to that, the off-street parking, we took a vote on that, and I believe we approved that. I'm going to look at the council members to make sure that I don't screw this up. The RMF 30 low density multifamily residential zoning district, we deferred action on that to a future date. The West End alley vacation we approved. However, the West End rezone we deferred to a future date. The rezone on Highland Drive 2903 we approved. The rezone on 1301, 1321 State Street we approved. And the zoning amendment for Lincoln Street and 200 South, we did not approve. Did I get that correctly, everyone?
Mr. Chair.
Please. Go ahead, Councilman Fowler. Yeah.
Just to make clear, the zoning text amendment for off-street parking, we voted on that. We voted to set a public hearing date for February 16th.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. Yes, we didn't approve it. We set a public hearing date. You're correct. This is why Councilmember Fowler can share anytime. Anything else from the council before we move on to public comment? Okay. We are accepting. We are now at the general comment portion of our agenda for comments about general topics and items that were not scheduled for a hearing tonight. We are accepting your comments through WebEx, and for those whose only option is to call in, staff will be monitoring a separate telephone line, as we mentioned earlier. For those just joining us, as I shared earlier, the City Council has always had rules of decorum that are created to advance the legitimate government objectives of having an orderly, efficient meeting that moves through the agenda and gives everyone the opportunity to voice their opinions. In person, we had the added benefit of being able to see each other, which helped us get to know our constituents and engage more meaningfully. We still want to provide a space for people to feel comfortable and safe to participate. In order to achieve this, our rules of decorum extend from the moment you arrived into our virtual meeting. To help facilitate our comment period, please be respectful. Avoid yelling or making racial slurs, obscene, or defamatory remarks. The council respects all points of view and we welcome new insights. However, using foul language and personal attacks make the public comment forum uncivil and intimidating for others. This meeting is also being broadcast on television and the internet, and so we will more strictly enforce the use of profanity. This will be considered your advance warning against the use of profanity. If someone uses profanity, we will mute your microphone and you will forfeit your opportunity to address the council tonight. If you feel you need to use profanity to express your point, you're welcome to email council members or call our comment line at 801-535-7654. In addition, just as we would ask for your name in our in-person meetings, we've also requested your name during the registration process. To limit disruption, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of decorum. If your registered name doesn't meet this requirement, then our staff will use the chat feature to gather that information from you. Robert Nutzman from our staff is helping to moderate the meeting and will be messaging with the attendees to coordinate. Please monitor the chat screen for information and/or feel free to message our staff with any questions. Again, his name is Robert Nutzman. Robert will also be calling the names of those who wish to comment and unmuting lines. Once we open public comment, Robert will announce 3 names at a time so that people can have some notice and be prepared to speak. When it is your turn to speak, the meeting host will unmute your line. Please state your name and the 2-minute timer will begin. At the 2-minute mark, the host will announce time and your microphone will be muted. I apologize in advance for those who get muted before they're done. But again, please continue your comments online or call us, get them to us another way. Of course, you will if you are unable to complete your full comment within the available time, as I mentioned earlier, you can mail us P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84114-5476. Email us at council.comments@slcgov.com or phone 801-535-7654. If you do not wish to speak, please message our staff to let them know, or when the host states your name, please just let us know you are here to listen. All right, Robert, please go ahead and announce the first 3 individuals who are in the queue to speak tonight.
Council Chair, first we have Eli Kaufman, followed by Bernie Aua, and then Cindy Cromer. 1 moment while I unmute Eli.
Hello, can you hear me?
Let's go ahead.
Hi, this is Eli again with Wasatch Tenants United. I would like to speak on this point directly to Mayor Mendenhall for justifying her disappointment in us by mentioning the $65 million spent on affordable housing. As affordable housing is currently defined, that is more per month for rent than I make in a month. We do not accept this as a justification for your actions until affordable housing is defined as something that someone making minimum wage in Salt Lake can afford, until someone making what is defined as a livable wage, which is around $11 an hour, can afford. We want affordable apartments to mean $600 and $600 after utilities for a 1-bedroom or studio, which is set at 40% of the area median income for the city to be considered affordable. We have to define these terms before you can just use them to justify your disappointment in us for fighting back against a rezone that will negatively affect our community. Additionally, the city must stop using our tax dollars to tear down affordable housing to build more luxury apartments in general, and must encourage the construction of more affordable housing by holding developers accountable. We cannot expect developers to do the right thing on their own. Take it from Tina, who is being kicked out of her home along with her entire family to make way for Dallin Jolly's development of the Kozo Apartments on the west side. Developers need to be held accountable. Additionally, the city must come up with a real solution for the housing crisis. Homelessness is not a crime, and instead of actually fixing this and providing people with shelter, you are giving money to Salt Lake City Police and to the health department to destroy homeless people's encampments, which you call city cleanups. This is not a cleanup. This is destroying people's shelter, and it is destroying people's belongings, while also harassing those who try to provide mutual aid to people being affected by the camp sweeps. Additionally, I would like to say to Darren Mono that if you wanted this ordinance to go through faster, why did you take out affordable housing in the first place? Wasatch Tenants United is not against development. We are against development that hurts.
Thanks for your comments. I apologize if we had to cut you off for 2 minutes, but you can, again, give it to us online or call us and continue those comments. We appreciate it.
Council Chair, next we have Bernie Aua, followed by Cindy Cromer, and then Tina Balderrama. Bernie, you've been unmuted.
Council members, my name is Bernie Awa. I'm the Vice President of Summum. I know the public hearing for the West End rezone is closed, but I just wanted to make a comment. What I found sort of interesting in the whole ordeal so far is that I heard the Salt Lake Planning Commission and the Salt Lake City Council members thank the developer for working with the community. And when I heard that, I thought, wow, what exactly did that entail? Because we are so impacted by what's going to go on, and no one contacted us and included us in any type of discussion about the project. Had they done so, they would have known that, you know, we were looking at some point implementing solar on our sanctuary, and with a huge building that is going to possibly go up, that could have a grave impact. I found it odd that the Poplar Grove Community Council also worked with the community, but did not include us in any discussion. So it's curious that there seemed to be some sort of selectivity on who was being included in this community outreach. And so I just wanted to bring that up, that it seems to me that there needs to be more inclusiveness with the community when projects happen. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. I do want to clarify, I misspoke earlier, I apologize. For those of you who can't finish your full comments within the 2 minutes, in the chat function on the right, we have posted the City Council web email address, and the phone number. You can leave a voice message on the phone number or email us. If you do want to talk in person, we probably have to talk tomorrow once council staff are back answering the phones full time. Thanks. Sorry, Robert, go ahead.
Council Chair, next we have Cindy Cromer, followed by Tina Balderrama, and then Martha Castillo. One moment while I unmute Cindy Cromer. Cindy, you're unmuted.
Thanks again, Robert. Back on February 16th, a month ago, I talked to you about chains of behavior and how it's possible to reinforce behaviors which occur earlier in a chain without intending to do so. I gave you an example from my own experience as a preschool teacher. An example that we're dealing with now in the city would be evictions which occur prior to the redevelopment of properties. You don't intend to reinforce evictions by landlords when you grant requests for zoning changes. Then on February the 24th, I followed that message with a video of a golden retriever going in and out of the doggy door to get treats without doing her business outside. The critical behavior didn't happen, but the human delivered the treat anyway. If you missed out on that video, I'll send it to your staff. It's pretty funny. Wise old dog. So we are here after 2 torturous years on 2nd South and Lincoln Street. You did your part as decision makers, and I am deeply appreciative. The tenants were evicted, but you did not play a direct role in that unfortunate outcome, and you didn't reinforce a bunch of irrelevant behaviors either. B.F. Skinner, G.S. Reynolds, Don Baer, Sid Bijou are smiling down on you tonight and thanking you, as am I. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your comments.
Council Chair, next we have Tina Balderrama, followed by Martha Castillo, and then Mike Nichols. One moment while I unmute Tina.
Can you hear me?
Tina, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify, my name is Tina Balderrama. I will be displaced by the Kozo Apartments. I already know this, but if I can help somebody else by speaking up against it, then maybe I have done my job. I would like to let the mayor know that there are no affordable housing units. There is no place to go. And tents are the new affordable housing. You can get one for each child in your home and in any color. Then you have to find a place where it won't be busted up. And they all know it. I have been ignored, but I'm tired of being ignored. I've been a victim. I'm tired of being a victim. And now I will be thrown to the streets and displaced by the Kozo apartments that have already achieved their zoning goal and are still moving forward each day against my family. I have not even been given a proper eviction notice, just a paper that says to leave the property by March 31st. Per se, all of you and the mayor. Thank you very much, Tina Balderrama.
Thank you, Tina.
Council Chair, Martha Castillo is not here, so we will move on to Mike Nichols, followed by Dennis Ferris, and then Sue Menu. One moment while I unmute Mike. Mike, you've been unmuted. Mike Nichols, you've been unmuted. We will come back to Mike when we will go ahead and move on to Dennis Ferris. Dennis, you've been unmuted.
Hello, Council. This is Dennis Ferris, former chair of the Poplar Grove Community Council, current vice chair. Just want to reiterate that I have personally knocked on the door of some of them and attempted to invite them to attend, as we hosted a community council meeting immediately next door to their space. We have always had an open door and will continue to do so. We would definitely love to hear from someone in the community sphere to hear whatever concerns they have and regarding our community and how things are happening. Would love to hear more from them on more things. So please do join in. And again, the developer in the West End property has been very communicative and collaborative, and we've been very appreciative of those actions. So thank you very much.
Thanks for your comments.
Next, we have Sue Menu, followed by Dave Iltis, and then George Chapman. One moment while I unmute Sue. Sue, you've been unmuted.
Hello, my name is Sue Manu. I am president and corporate soul of Summum. We've been located at the 707 Genesee for almost 50 years now. We have nurtured the property, and because we've had sunlight, we've been able to grow our gardens. And we consider the ground around our temple sacred grounds, just like the temple downtown is considered temple ground that is sacred. And building a 75-foot tall surrounding our property will kill off much of our land. The shade will cover some almost totally during the winter, not to mention the noise that's going to come from the freeway and bounce off that giant building. You know, part of our meditation involves the sun. It is in our scriptures, and the fact that we need to have a peaceful surrounding, that is also a component of our meditation. And it is in our scripture. So I would just ask, maybe some of you, if you want to engage with someone, to drop by, send us an email. We would love to have the mayor come visit and see what this is going to do to us. We've invited people. I've tried to set up a time with the mayor, but have not been able to get a hold of her. So all we're asking, we're not saying not to develop the land. I think it's great, just not so high that it will impede everything we've done. Thank you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Dave Iltis, followed by George Chapman, and then Ian Daxter. One moment. Dave Iltis, you've been unmuted.
Hi, this is Dave Iltis. Let's see, I wanted to comment on a couple of things here. One is that I'm asking for, I don't know, probably the dozenth time at this point to the council, please fix your weekly emails so that they're more accessible. They're terrible. They do not have the agenda in them. You have to click like 4 links to get to the agenda. The agendas don't download easily on mobile phones. They're just a mess. It's not that hard. But somehow you're not able to do this. So please fix them to make them be more accessible. The second, it was kind of unclear as to what happened with the parking ordinance amendments. But I don't know if they passed or if they were deferred to another public hearing. I didn't quite get that from Councilman Johnston or Councilwoman Fowler. But in any case, I'm wondering if you considered in all of this the downtown and Sugar House parking study from 2015-16 that the administration paid a lot of money for and then never released to the public. This is a parking study that I believe the council had seen at one point, but it was never approved. It was squelched for unknown reasons, and I don't know, I think it showed that there was lots of parking available, but you should be considering this as part of any ordinance that you're presenting to the city. And then lastly, Gladiola Street, the reconstruction of Gladiola on the west side is on hold. And it would be really nice to see bike lanes striped from 9th South to 18th South, because this would complete a 6.3 mile continuous bike lane, but transportation seems to have dropped the ball on this and has no plan. And despite the fact that I've brought this up with them since 2018, nothing is happening. And so I hope Mayor Mendenhall can talk with them and look at adding.
Sorry to cut you off, and at the risk of butchering my recap again, I think we close the public comment and deferred action to another time. Is that right, Councilmember Fowler? Yep, that is correct. So we'll set a future date for action on that item, Mr. Iltis.
Council Chair, next we have George Chapman, followed by Ian Daxter, and then Zachary DeSalt. One moment while I unmute George. George, you've been unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to keep repeating myself, but you know the system. Okay, public engagement when this administration came in was actually impressively great. I was really impressed, but it recently has been failing significantly. And two recent examples are an ADA TIP for Miller Park was approved a few years ago, but recently the city told residents that the city spent so much on the consultant that there's no money for ADA access, which was the point of the CIP. That was a big mess up. It shows bad management, and it never should have come out like that. And last night, the city told residents that, surprise, the 900 East redesign is finalized despite being 70% a month ago, and no further input is allowed. But wait, in 1 hour, we were able to stop the city from allowing sharrows on 9th East and 21st South, but they won't allow us to talk about restriping for one 9-foot wide bike lane going south, and it should be allowed because we're taking away an 11-foot center turn lane. So why not one 9-foot bike lane, which should be standardized actually throughout the city? So the 900 South redesign also has decided on center parking, but I don't know of any community council member that knows about it. So this administration needs to get back to where we started and provide better public engagement. Please complain to the county about releasing criminals from jail within hours, including the master catalytic converter thief to continue his trade. I guess the Sorensen Center vehicles are in for a repeat. Staff should discuss HB 98, which will have a big impact on Salt Lake City, and rental assistance with COVID funds should ensure that apartment owners don't try to destroy the credit of renters if taxpayers pay the rent. And yes, I'll keep fighting the $12 million.
Sorry to cut you off, George, but again, thanks for your comments, and you can continue online with us.
Council Chair, next we have Ian Daxter, followed by Zachary DeSalt. Ian, you've been unmuted.
Cool, check.
Go right ahead.
Hi. So I think that I just want to take a second here to kind of outline, because there's a lot of anger. WTU actually does have written demands, which we've sent to the mayor, but I think that the city councilors are also important. I first off want to thank you guys for deferring action to this, but pending some actual consideration. But anyway, firstly, we're asking that the city limit the rent on anything that they define as affordable to $616 after utilities, for example, for one bedroom apartment set at 40% of the area median income. That's actually based off a number you can find in the state report on affordable housing, talking about what the living wage is. The second thing we're asking is that the city stop using our tax money to tear down affordable housing to build luxury apartments and encourage the construction of more affordable housing. So what we mean is, I think we kind of talked about earlier, inclusive housing, and maybe there's some restrictions on that. All these things are things that we're willing to sit down and talk with you guys about. You can reach me at WTU801@gmail.com anytime you want. But the usage of TIF to incentivize the construction of any form of housing that does not explicitly cater to people who are making the living wage as like a cap is pretty irresponsible in our opinion, and that's a big thing we have a problem with is the RDA's usage of TIF in its current incarnation. We think that it needs to be putting at least 50% of all units that it is working towards affordable housing. Affordable meaning affordable to someone making the living wage or lower. And then the last one is that the city needs to come up with a real solution to the houseless crisis, meaning that the Salt Lake City cops should not be helping health officials conduct sweeps. They should not be confiscating anybody's things. I know that it's been said that they're no longer handing out citations, but once a week I see videos of these cops. In fact, I live in neighborhoods where I regularly see cops taking away people's stuff. So maybe it's a regulation issue. Maybe you guys aren't being quite thorough enough. Maybe there needs to be an investigation. But that's what we believe needs to change. And again, WTU801 @gmail.com. You can reach me literally anytime. And I'll be happy to sit down with any of you.
Thanks for your comments again tonight.
Council Chair, next we have Zachary DeSalt. Zachary, you're unmuted.
Hi, my name is Zachary DeSalt. I live in District 4. I just kind of want to have some general comments about housing affordability and zoning. I know that they kind of get conflated a lot, but I think Councilman Mano brought up a great point that if we don't focus seriously on zoning reform, we're just going to end up like San Francisco, where we have multi-million-dollar single-family homes. So I think it's very important when talking about this discussion. It's not an either or. It's not like if this amendment doesn't pass, then all of these homes are saved and they're going to be affordable forever. They're going to be bought by someone who's crazy rich coming here from California, and then they're going to tear it down, and then they're going to make a Bruce Banner, Batman looking kind of house, and that they'll live there and kick whoever's living there out. So I do think that land use and zoning reform is important. I think it should be paired with housing affordability, but I don't think housing affordability should trump good land use reform. So that's just a general comment on that. And then kind of to the mayor, I know it's been a rough year. I know we've had a lot going on, but I really do look forward to more proposals about just kind of transportation options in the city. I really liked your interview a year ago with Nick Norris about ideas to make the city more accessible transit-wise, more of like a 15-minute city. And I would love to see Sweet Streets brought back this year. I don't know if that's in the works, but closing down Main Street for the summer, that was awesome, and I really hope that comes back. Thanks.
Thanks for your feedback.
Council Chair, next we have Michael Showalter. One moment. Michael, you've been unmuted.
Hello. I just wanted to comment really quickly about a few different things. The luxury apartment buildings that are going up. I just want to remind everyone that former City Council member Kyle is married to Aaron Mendenhall, the mayor, and he is a property developer. And by giving different loans to different apartment buildings, he gets to raise his rent. Again, he gets to raise his rent. I want the city to grow and I want it to improve. And I want you to work for the people, and I know for a lot of things you guys are, but you made a promise just a few months ago that you hear the city of Salt Lake and our uprising about police brutality, yet they got $7 million more in extra funds. You say you hear us and you're going to act, yet you continue to give money to a police department that is brutalizing people. I just want you to do what you say you're going to do. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment.
Council Chair, next we have Devin O'Donnell. One moment. Devin, you're unmuted.
Thank you very much. So yes, I love what the last person mentioned regarding the funding of the police department. We, according to the City Council's website regarding affordable housing, we've set around, I think, $4 million for housing this year, going towards that, towards that project. But I believe the mayor earlier said something about 60 plus million. According to the council's website, that's about 48.3. Among that, that's mostly projects being funded through pilot programs, only one of which is actually a high-density housing unit. As I mentioned on my last comment, 60 of the newest buildings, only 10 of those have affordable housing. So yes, you are creating single-family home and maybe duplexes that are affordable, but these high-density apartments they're not affordable. So the one project listed is the Give Foundation's Diamond Rail, which will cap out between 20 and 50% of the AMI. As we've mentioned, the 50% AMI is still not affordable for people. So again, it's astounding to me that the only affordable housing is west of 300 West, and the west side continues to be neglected. The only major development here and rebeautification has been the Trax line, and we can't provide or pretend that was for anything more than to bring business into the city from the airport. I've seen so many redevelopments on the east side, medians improved, all of the great projects there, but our sidewalks are barren. There's a high voltage power line running through neighborhoods with children. I would really love to see the city council care a little bit more about, those on the west side and those who are lower income, as you all have said you'd committed to.
Time.
That's all.
Thanks for your comment tonight.
Council Chair, we don't have any more speakers.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone who made a comment tonight, both in the previous and this current public comment section of the evening. We have no new business or unfinished business items scheduled tonight, so that brings us to the consent portion of our agenda. I'll look for a motion.
Move for approval of consent agenda.
Second. We have a motion by Councilmember Rogers, a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, I'll take a vote. Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemaros. Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Therefore, this concludes our formal city council meeting tonight. And before we conclude officially, I just want to make sure we give thanks to our council staff who've helped us. I should have done this last time and I didn't. So both Robert Nutzman and Isaac Canedo. I've actually never met Isaac. Due to the pandemic, we haven't seen each other. So I want to thank both of them for their diligent work behind the scenes to make this run smoothly, number one, and make sure we have the public comment that's open to everybody as much as we possibly can. So thank you to both of you and the entire council staff tonight. And with that, the council's formal meeting now stands adjourned.
Good night. Thank you.